Hi, it's Dwyer. It's President's Day here in the United States. It's February 17th, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk about a bet that recently cashed. Let's also talk about betting strategy on 50-50 fights. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let's talk about a 50-50 fight, and let's be careful here. Let me pivot. Let me talk briefly about Crawford's challenge for Canelo's title. Right? Many people in the sport of boxing greatly respect Terence Crawford. He is one of the best fighters I've seen. He's clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer. Right? Also, the people in boxing love great fighters who actually take on major challenges. Right? So the fact that Crawford wants to fight Canelo has created a lot of respect and goodwill toward Crawford. Right? Everyone understands Crawford, who's well into his 30s, could easily walk away from the sport. Right? He's not doing so. In fact, he's taking on one of the very best in the sport. Right? And he's doing so not at the weight class above him, but the weight class 2 classes above him. So people talk about that fight as a 50-50 fight. Folks, don't be confused by that. Right? Boxing is a sport that has a lot of respect for the fighters. When a pundit says, hey, that's a 50-50 fight, you understand there's a political component to it. Right? What we're really saying is, hey, man, Crawford's a great fighter and, he's had a great career. That's not a real 50-50 fight. I can't name a real 50-50 fight where a guy is jumping up 2 weight classes after not getting a stoppage in his last fight, which is 1 weight class above where he spent the latter part of his career. Right? When I say 50-50 fight, I'm not talking about a political prognostication where I'm saying, hey, look at this fighter taking a chance. He deserves your respect. Right? No, I'm talking about a real 50-50 fight. I'm talking about a fight where you could reach into your pocket and take out a coin and flip it, and the coin has as much of a chance as landing on heads as either fighter does of winning the fight. Right? For those who don't know, I think Canelo is a mountain too tall for Crawford to climb. I don't care what sizes the guys look like. I don't care what Crawford's weighing right now. It's Canelo who has experience at 168. It's Canelo's title that Crawford is trying to take. Right? Canelo also is the box office king regarding the 2 guys. In other words, you look at 2 guys and you say, well, who's more popular? It matters because, of course, you have judges judging the fight. Right? Who's more popular? Canelo or Terence Crawford? As great as Crawford is, Crawford hasn't received the paydays Canelo has received. I was looking at some recent printout of what fighters made, and Canelo last year made over $70 million. Right? Just understand, Canelo's the more popular fighter. What that means is that you have more people in the sport who have made money off Canelo than have made money off Crawford. I don't have the fine-tuned details of the fight right now because, of course, Canelo is fighting William Skull first. But if the fight is in Vegas, we all know it's uphill trying to beat Canelo at T-Mobile. Right? Vegas right now is Canelo's town. It's his throne. He sits on it. So just be aware, for Crawford to win, in my opinion, he's going to have to knock Canelo down a few times. In the comment section of this video, tell us the fights. in which Canelo has hit the canvas, keeping in mind that Canelo has fought people like Golovkin, Cotto, James Kirkland, right? Guys with many KOs. Well, let's talk about a fight that, to me, was a real 50-50 fight. And let's talk about why sometimes these fights are the best fights to bet on. Now, full disclosure, I wasn't kidding with the coin analogy. I didn't know who was going to win this fight. It was Arnold Barbosa fighting Jack Catterall in Catterall's home country. Right? I didn't know who was going to win the fight. But I understood. Both guys are defensively blessed. Both guys have had several fights go the distance. Right? Barbosa only has 11 KOs. You also understood, too, that Catterall, who used to train with Floyd Mayweather, fights out of a Philly shell at times. Right now, a Philly shell is great defensively if you could pull it off. But understand, your arms are all tied up, right? Because you're using your body for body armor, right? You have one hand draped. You have another hand covering your chin. You understood that Catterall was going to have more to unwind to throw a punch than Barbosa, who, for a lot of his fights, has his hands up, rabbit ear style, has his hands out, is a combination puncher. So, looked at the fight. When I was younger, I would have thought 50-50. I don't know who's going to win. I'm not going to touch it. Well, now I view those fights as opportunities, because now it's a numbers game. Right? You understand Catterall has been going the distance of late, hasn't he? He has Linares badly hurt in the middle of that fight. That fight goes the distance. Regis Prograis, that fight goes the distance. Both Josh Taylor fights, he knocks Taylor down in the first fight. Both fights go the distance. Now here he is fighting a guy who's better defensively, quite frankly, than any of the guys I just named. Right? Arnold Barbosa. You thought to yourself, it's a 50-50 fight. The fight's probably going to go the distance. Right? As I said in a pre-fight video to paid subscribers here. So, I would have left it alone. If the odds were 50-50. If the odds were on a distance prop. Right? Forget the other props. You understood. Two defensively blessed guys. Right? On a distance prop. You thought to yourself, you know, this should be evenly matched. I see it as 50-50. Well, folks, that's not the way casinos work. Casinos are responding to markets. Catterall, fighting in his home country, was a 4/5 to win the fight by decision or technical decision. Right? Just understand, Barbosa in a 50-50 fight, and this is what I call a numbers play, was a 7-2. A 7-2, 3.5 to 1. So you look at the spread, you say, I'm going to disregard the other odds, and it's dangerous. I'm not saying there's not risk involved. I'm going to disregard the other odds because I feel these fighters are defensively blessed. If this fight goes the distance, are they offering me any values? The answer was yes. Right? When one fighter is going off at 3.5 to 1, you understand that you can bet more on the favorite and still set it up so that if either fighter wins by decision, you make a profit. Right? The Barbosa play paid off 3.5 to 1, even if you gave away some. right? If you came in with the mindset of, okay, if Catterall wins, I just want to break even. You break even, you live for another day, right? I just want to break even for swing for the fences. Or if you said to yourself, if Catterall wins, I want to get a little something something. I want to get a little something something if either wins, right? Well, understand, even if you bet less on Barbosa than you did on Catterall, because you were getting a 3.5 to 1 on Barbosa, you made a profit, a nice profit, on a fight where you didn't know who was going to win. Now look at the CompuBox numbers. You're going to notice that Barbosa, who keeps his hands out front. Now keep in mind, boxing is rock, paper, scissors, right? Against the defensive Catterall, Barbosa, who is a combination puncher, ends up landing more punches, round after round. Folks, that's systemic. In other words, you understand the fight's a 50-50 fight. You understand Catterall hits harder than Barbosa. I stand by those pre-fight comments. But you also understood that if nobody got hurt, if nobody got dropped, if both guys stayed on their feet, there was a distinct advantage that the guy landing more shots would win the fight. The casino, at least the market price, right? I believe there are people at the casino who, are very sharp and know when the line's out of whack, right? Just understand, the casino didn't price that in. As a result, in a 50-50 fight, Barbosa wins the decision, and you cashed 3.5 to 1 without knowing, right? Minus the money you placed on Catterall. Let's not forget that. And just understand, you cashed it in on a highly competitive fight where you didn't know who was going to win, simply by playing the numbers, simply by realizing this fight's going to go the distance. How can I get an edge? Now, somebody here online, a subscriber, wrote me, left a comment, I should say, to the video that people could look at, right? Whether you're a member or not, you could look at the comments to the video. I ask members not to disclose my prediction in their comments. You can leave a comment that doesn't give away the prediction. But somebody left a comment saying, well, why aren't we simply taking the prop that the fight goes the distance? Right? Why would you split it? Catterall winning in one bet and Barbosa winning the other bet. Right? Well, the prop of the fight going the distance was a minus 215. I'm not interested in that. Bet $215 to win 100. Understand, the Catterall side of the play, Catterall's a 4/5. He's a less than even money to win by decision. Right? The reason you split the bet is because the mistake the casino made here was on the Barbosa side of the play. This is a guy who beat Jose Ramirez. This is a guy who's unbeaten. This is a guy who's calling out, in my opinion, the toughest champ at 140 pounds. Richardson Hitchens. Right? The idea of Barbosa getting a 7/2 is ridiculous. Right? You see that and you say, wow, this fight's mispriced, at least this prop is. So we found the mispriced prop, and it delivered. Let me also say, too, of all the divisions in boxing, of all of them, you're not going to find a better set of slick back foot guys than you are at 140. Right? Think about it. Catterall, Barbosa, Parrow, Richardson, Hitchens. Folks, 140 is loaded. Devin Haney, right? 140 has a lot of guys, Jermaine Ortiz, with back foot skills. Right? So just understand, if you're looking at a fight at 140, you need to be biased toward the over. That's just in general. Right? Just like if you hear, and I know he got knocked down a few times in his fight against Ryan Garcia, but just like if you hear that Devin Haney is fighting someone, before you even look at the numbers, your thought process should be, oh, this fight's going to go several rounds. Because you understand Devin Haney is hard to find in the ring. Right? Richardson Hitchens is a guy who knows how to use height. You know, I'm big on that. I see a guy with height and a jab. And since I was raised during the Larry Holmes era, you know, my question's going to be, how many rounds is Hitchens going to win in the early part of the fight that his opponent is going to have to come back from? Right? Because if you have height and a jab and you know how to use it, the other guy can't reach you. Right? So take a look at 140. Understand, Barbosa is calling out Hitchens. That fight would be at the top of the division. I am nervous about Teofimo Lopez because he doesn't do good with movers. Sander Martin, for example, I thought beat Lopez. Jermaine Ortiz, for example, I thought beat Lopez. I know that's not how the judges saw it. That's okay. If I'm betting on fights, I have to deal with reality, not political scoring, right? I also am a little bit curious whenever a guy signs with a new advisory team and the guy wants to jump up to 147, and I'm privately thinking to myself, does he have enough volume and firepower to deal with Mario Barrios, who'll eventually come in the pocket? Let's remember, Barrios is beating Gervonta Davis, in my opinion, before Davis gets the stoppage. Don't let stoppages cause amnesia. Right? Does Teofimo have enough to deal with Jaron Ennis, who has practically inherited the division, but who lately has not looked that good in the ring? Right? Let me just add, too, that, you know, you look at some fighters and you look at their corners. And when a fighter has a underrated trainer, right, you have to think to yourself, okay, this brother hasn't looked that good in recent fights, but with this trainer in his corner, I know, you know, they're going to be working on a lot in the gym. Just understand that Jaron Ennis' father was the trainer for Stephen Fulton, who just pitched a masterpiece against Brandon Figueroa. Right? So I look at a Teofimo Lopez and I think, wow, if he gains weight, right? And keep in mind, we're not even talking about a Crawford situation where Crawford gains weight, has a fight, now is going to move up 2 more weight classes. We're just talking about Teofimo moving up 1 weight class. Right? Is he ready to deal with a fighter from Philly with a great corner, who, of course, is unbeaten and who has, at least up until now, married boxing with knockouts? Right? Ennis is a boxer puncher. Right? Food for thought. If Teofimo stays at 140, you know, it's tough either way. He's going to be dealing with some of the best legs in the sport. Right? Teofimo does not match up well, in my opinion, with Richardson Hitchens, with Arnold Barbosa. We already know he doesn't match up well with Sander Martin. He doesn't match up well with Devin Haney. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. I will concede. Devin Haney is an absolute master to me in the pocket. The question is whether if he fights an Arnold Barbosa, he'll be able to keep Barbosa in the pocket. I think the answer is no if the casino is crazy enough to give me 7-2 on Barbosa by decision in that fight. You won't have to put a bow on the package for me to take it. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Thanks for stopping by. Happy President's Day.